Kumar, CEO, StockDaddy; Divij Bajaj, founder and CEO, Power Gummies; Prerna Kalra, co-founder, Dalchini; Anubhav Jain, co-founder and CEO, Rupify; Ms. Naina Ruhel, founder and director, Vanity Wagon; Mr. Chirag Taneja, co-founder and CEO, Go Quick; Dr. Preet Pal Thakur, co-founder, Clam Your Health. So that's our panel for you all. And I would request the panelists to kindly come and take the stage. We also have Ms. Ruhel joining in virtually with the help of the technology. Welcome, ma'am. And for the rest of the panelists, the stage is all yours. I'll request you to kindly take a seat. Can we get some seats up here, please? All right, quick reminder to everyone listening in virtually to us, the hashtag is Founders Forum. Let us know which panel discussion, which session did you enjoy the most. We'll be very happy for you all to use the hashtag and let the world know the conversations that are happening here. And with that, I'll hand over the screen and of course the stage to Ms. Sharma. Over to you.
Yeah, can you hear me? Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So 2021 has been a great year. We had some 44 unicorns. We already have some 7 or 10 this year. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about strategic investment planning. We're going to talk about future planning. But before that, all of you on this stage are going to introduce ourselves to you. I'll start. I'm Jyotsna Sharma. I'm a senior associate editor at BW Business World. Outside of work, I like to travel when I can. I like to read, and I power down with some Tom and Jerry.
Hi, I'm Alok Kumar, and I like off-road driving. And I'm founder and CEO of StockDaddy. But what is StockDaddy? For this, I need to start my elevator pitch here. Basically, अगर मैं दिल्ली एयरपोर्ट पे हूँ and मुझे अपने ऑफिस जाना है, so within 1 second एक आइडिया क्लिक करता है कि let's book Ola और Uber, right? But अगर हम बात करें कि स्टॉक मार्केट में इन्वेस्टमेंट और ट्रेडिंग सीखना है, so हम कहाँ से सीखें? So कोई एक ब्रांड सामने नहीं आता. So ये जो वैकेंट प्लेस है इंडियन सोसाइटी के माइंड में, the same we are acquiring a StockDaddy in Indian market. But what kind of problem we are solving? So basically negativity in stock market, and there is no complete learning solution for stock market investment and trading. And there is no well-known brand for this complete learning platform. So this we are solving.
Hi everyone, I'm Prerna Kalra and I'm founder of a company called Dalchini. We are into smart retail. So like we all now are habitual of e-commerce and getting the things quickly delivered at home, right? But when we are out of home, in our office, in a plant where work from home is not possible, college, etc., Dalchini is a place which serves almost everything. Dalchini essentials, like kind of a quick commerce for when people are out of home.
Hi everyone, my name is Preet. I am one of the co-founders of Clam Your Health. So we'll come to Clam Your Health a little later during the course of the presentation. But aside of being the co-founder and sort of blitzscaling this health tech startup, I like to travel just like Jyotsna. So my bucket list is to complete whole Europe. So I'm roughly 40% done.
Hi, I'm Chirag. I'm co-founder and CEO of Go Quick. Go Quick is a e-commerce enablement company. It's a pandemic-born company, so only 14, 15 months into the journey. And as it is popularly said that in the gold rush, you should be in the business of building shovels. We are one of those who help you mine gold or who help make you run e-commerce business, and in various different ways. I'll come to that specifically, but that's what we do. And now the company's become 100 odd people. And just to add, it's a fully remote company and will continue to be remote. Thank you.
Hi everyone, this is Anubhav. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Rupify. As the name suggests, we are in the financial services space. We are primarily a B2B payments and B2B credit company. And we work for the long tail of small businesses in India, the very small micro SMEs in the country, helping them with payments and credit solutions. When I'm not working on Rupify, which is hardly any time, but that's the time I spend in cooking. So I love following MasterChef and trying those things. Thank you.
Wonderful. And we have Naina joining us virtually.
Hi, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Am I audible?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm Naina Ruhail. I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of Vanity Wagon. So Vanity Wagon is essentially a clean beauty marketplace. We started in September 2018 with just 10 brands, and today we are at a now great number of 200, and we are growing every day. So I'm really excited to be part of this panel discussion. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being here, all of you. So let's start. We spoke about this earlier as well outside. 2021 was a big year. So what was it about 2021 that stood out for each one of you? So would you like to start right now?
Yeah. So I'll say 2021, when it came in, and we were kind of in a TARDIS. You know what is TARDIS? TARDIS is a time machine, right? Which looks very small from outside, but it's fairly large from inside, right? So we started this project called TARDIS inside the company because we were almost bootstrapped. Like we had just raised a funding and then COVID happened, and we were also reinventing, pivoting, etc. Right? So for us, right, it was to make or break, right, kind of a thing, right? So we inside the company did a lot of brainstorming, and like one of the person in the last session mentioned, right? Bring that core team into when you're doing such kind of brainstorming and bring that power to them, right? That's what we started doing. And we actually, when we closed the year, right, we did almost 5x, right? And that's what has happened if you look at in India also, right? We have seen brilliant private market investments, and we have seen some brilliant IPOs, and we have seen the other way out also. I'm glad that I've been part of two such big companies who went IPO just last year, Paytm and Fino, right? And I've spent about 10 years in these companies. So yeah, glad to be part of that and got that learning early on, right, in my past career, right? So answering your question, right, what do we see, right? What changed in 2021? So I guess, right, as a part of our project artist, right, we were aiming to be, right, okay, this has happened, it has happened to the world, right? Let's just make the best out of it.
Alok, aapke liye, what was it that?
Basically, during COVID-19, लोगों ने रियलाइज किया कि सेकेंडरी सोर्स ऑफ इनकम लाइफ में बहुत ज़्यादा जरूरी है. एंड इसके बीच में अगर हम देखें NSDL के डेटा, so nearly more than 1 crore new demat account has been opened in India, right? So but trading investment अगर हम सीखने की बात करें तो कहाँ से सीख सकते हैं? So there is like no complete learning platform for these things, but now we have StockDaddy. And yes, so COVID-19 में हमने ये StockDaddy का version 1 market में roll out किया, and within 60 technical days we got 80,000 customers on our app, right? And yeah, we are expanding and we are adding value to this Indian society कि हम secondary source of income और maybe as a primary source of income stock market से और investment and trading करके हम कैसे add करें अपने life में.
Great. What was it that stood out for you?
Right. So 2021 was a very interesting year healthcare wise, right? I don't need to remind everyone, right? For us at Glamio Health, right, it was a pivotal year. So till March, we were sort of chugging along, just like a startup normally does, right? I mean, so come April, right, I started, and my co-founder also started getting 15 to 20 requests of people asking for beds in various hospitals, right? Every day this would happen, right? And I personally would try, let's say, for everyone, but in the end, I couldn't help even one of them, right? Maybe in those 10 panic days, I would have helped maybe cumulatively 2 people, right? Get some bed or something like that, right? Now, enter April end and May, I think it is this time when me and my co-founders sort of thought that this is no pace to grow, right? We need to expand much faster because the patient is suffering, right? So that from the month of April, when we were like 3-4 cities, right? We've expanded extremely fastly, and we've now sort of reached 16 plus cities. In next 6 months, we'll be 30 plus cities, right? We were emboldened by what we saw during the pandemic peak, right? I think that has helped us to sort of scale beyond what we would have done otherwise.
I'll probably frame it in, or I'll divide it into three parts that, from an ecosystem perspective, I think what we saw in 2021, clearly, I think as a startup ecosystem, we clearly saw that we are over the inflection point. And I can say it from various number of different points, right? One is, of course, unicorns. Second is the amount of funding happening in the early stage. But also, running an e-commerce enablement company, I can also tell that the depth of the market has, increased, which has led to the inflection point in a very different way. So that's on the ecosystem side. On the company side, you can imagine that we launched in January 2021. And initially, any company launching and starting to witness an early stage PMF, the mandate is that can you quickly scale, right? So for us, the 2021 was about how can you quickly scale? How can you quickly go about just scaling and capturing product market fit, right? So of course, we've had our share of mistakes in that, but that's for some other time. And third, I think an important one from people perspective, I think we've been very, very conscious on the kind of company we want to build. And especially, I think 2021 was a little different in very different ways, wherein we have almost two waves, right? One in April, then second towards the end of the year. I think what was very different was that one, you are expected, or the mandate is to scale. There is an opportunity which is clearly visible. Alongside it, you have to be empathetic to the people that how do you ensure that you don't cross the line? You're there when they need you, especially in these tough times, right? We've all seen April was a deadly wave. So for me, I think staying that balance and ensuring that, like soldiers, someone steps in while, someone else is injured, we take over for the other person. That's what we follow.
Yeah, I think I was also thinking on the same line. So three things we could also see their impact externally, internally, and to the business directly. Obviously, as Chirag mentioned, we realized that the way you run a company completely changed. Right? Before 2021, there were things that mattered to you more. But during this year, we felt that if somebody had a personal emergency, if somebody needed off time, you have to ensure that you build for that over a period of time. People could be away from work for a couple of weeks or even longer. There is no fixed timeline that if somebody is tested positive, when will they return back? You have to be sensitive and not ask that question, rather see how they recover, how they get all the support from the company if possible. So I think that's something that was built with us because we were also, like a COVID baby. We were born in 2020 and immediately COVID struck. So we've been there throughout these last 2 years. So a lot of what we've built is in the pandemic. The second thing that happened to us was because we work for small businesses, which is the most significantly impacted entity out there in India. So these are very small businesses. Lockdowns impact them. Their shops close down. Government comes out with restrictions. Their business gets impacted. So we have to think backwards in terms of how do we not look at creating value in the short run, but in the long run. I think a lot of our strategies, even though we had the pressure to grow fast and we grew, if you look at how the company grew from December 20 to December 21, we grew 100x. But the first 6 months of 21 was very, very patiently built. We saw a second wave coming. We are into a part of lending business. Small businesses, they were struggling to pay us back. Now, there could be two ways in which we could have handled this. We could have written off that portfolio, or we could have just waited and supported them. A lot of a lot of investors, lenders, when you ask them what kind of metrics you report, you'll see that our books will start turning red. But we told them this money is going to come back. You have to be patient. You have to support these guys. And I think that's exactly what happened. We built that trust. I think that customer trust was built in the first 6 months. And then we were able to scale it rapidly in the next 6 months. So it was across, whether with external stakeholders or internal people, it was a period of building trust. I think, and that trust came only through support and more than anything else.
Let's hear from you, Naina.
Right. So, we saw a lot of startups disrupting the market in 2021 and getting their due validation. Also, Vanity Wagon, being the founder of Vanity Wagon, we raised a pre-series A rounds, which was a really, and 2021 turned out to be a great year for us because we scaled exponentially and we made our community grow stronger. It was a post-pandemic era. So, we did some really good work in 2021 and we saw a lot of investments happening, a lot of women-led businesses coming into the picture, which was a great sign. So hoping for a great year this year as well. And yeah, I just like to keep it short and end that.
So I'll come to you, Chirag. There's this concept that I want to talk about. Tell me, adding value and creating wealth. So tell me about that. Tell me, how can one do both of those things together?
And do you mean for, us as founders, as a company, as customers? So, as a company, at least what I believe is that this is a decade-long journey, and I've done this twice before, so I know that no entrepreneurship is, a 2-year stint. And, at least I have a thesis on this, that in today's world, building a large company is easier than building a small company, right? And why I say so is that one, especially if you look at technology businesses, they typically end up becoming winner take all. Or if you look at it from a market share point of view, you'll typically have a leader, which is, let's say, X percentage market share, followed by the second one will have X by 2, third will have X by 4, right? So, and if you have to build out a large company, it means that you will have to create wealth creation opportunities for a lot of people in the company. It cannot be that, people who started the company will only amass or will only, get majority of what the wealth is going to be created. So we have been very conscious, that what kind of company we want to build. And hence, day one, I can, boast about this. Our company, GoQuick, had the biggest ESOP pool day one without any investors. So, and till date, probably close to 75% of our folks in the company have ESOPs. And we don't use it as a retention tool. Some people use it as a retention tool. You look at it as a great wealth creation opportunity, right? So I think we typically divide rewards into 3 things. One is immediate rewards, and there is recognition, and there is this long-term wealth, right? All 3 are important, and for different stages of different people. So while value will get created by these people only, but then we need to give proportionate reward across the funnel, right? Not immediate, but also long-term. That's how at least I think.
Preet, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I think Chirag very well explained the philosophy. At Glamio Health also, I think much like him, right? Before we had any investor, we had a very, very, very generous pool allocated to the ESOPs. We didn't need to do that, right? But in my previous sort of an avatar, I used to be a healthcare investor prior to co-founding this company, right? So again, sharing and sort of motivating the people to build something and sort of the creating that sort of a rally or that rally cry in the organization, right? You need people to believe in the vision, right? If they believe in the vision, if they are performing, if they want to solve problems which are outside of their normal work, I think they need to be part of the wealth, if at all is created. Right?
Yeah, just to add, I think as Chirag had mentioned, it's a journey. Value creation and wealth creation both happen over a period of time, right? So what we've done is we've realized that as a company and as people, you start creating value from day one, and then you keep adding to that. And what we've done is ESOPs are not a one-time activity, right? So there have been people who have joined us on day one. And at that time, we were also early in the journey. We were also getting things cleared. We were learning the path, the direction was all being framed. So as we got more clarity and as more and more value creation happened, we ensured that we kept on adding more to that wealth creation pool. So somebody who may have joined us with X ESOPs on day one, but when we saw that this person is creating more value to the company, right, we added more to that person. So it's a journey. It won't happen on day one. I think neither value nor wealth is created in short term, right? I think it's both a long-term activity, but it's progressive. You have to invest both as an employee as well as the founders or investors to do this.
Just to
Alok.
add, for both value creation and wealth creation, the 8th wonder of the world works, compounding. So,
Yeah.
very, very rightly said by Anu.
So I like to add here, right, that we look at wealth creation and value creation in one way, which is like for our own stakeholders, right? I would say that value creation in a country like India, which is such highly populated, you create a product which has, which is solving even like a 5% more problem, right? It is than the previous product which exists. It would get traction, right? But wealth creation will happen if that 5% value is added on a strong unit economics. And that's what, when we were building Dalchini, right, that was the foundation, right? Value creation for the customer is important, but when you're doing wealth creation, it has to be long-term, and long-term will come only if you have the right unit economics. Yeah.
So Alok, मुझे आपसे पूछना है, what does it mean to you to be a disruptor?
Because we are making retail investors ready for our Indian economy in the stock market. Because India में लोग सोचते हैं stock market casino है, या तो पैसा जीरो होगा या तो डबल होगा, but क्यों? Because India में लोग tips and advisory पे trade बहुत ज़्यादा करते हैं. But my question is like पैसा अगर आपका है, so risk किसी और का क्यों है, right? But for this we need learning and knowledge, and the same we are providing as a edtech platform, StockDaddy, and yes. कि नियरली हमने 80,000 लोगों के लाइफ में एक वैल्यू भी ऐड किया, एंड वो अभी सक्सेसफुली ट्रेडिंग या इन्वेस्टमेंट करके अपने लाइफ में कुछ सेकेंडरी सोर्स ऑफ इनकम जनरेट कर पा रहे हैं, राइट?
So Naina, what does it mean to you, the term being a disruptor?
Yeah, so disruptor to me is, a company or a technology that disrupts the way an industry operates, right? So, you bring something innovative to the market, like something that we did with Vanity Wagon. When we started in 2018, we disrupted the traditional beauty industry with bringing clean beauty, a niche marketplace into the, a market. And so that was the start of the disruption. And today, clean beauty is a segment in itself, and there are so many brands and marketplaces that have come up. So I feel that is what disruption means, when you do something different and disrupt the market. Yeah.
So for you and for Prerna, I have another question. What is it like to be women in business? So why don't you take that, Naina?
Firstly, I would just want to say kudos to all the women out there who are leading businesses right now, because with women like Falguni Nair and Leena Nair, setting benchmarks, and they have inspired so many women like me to, come and take charge of leadership positions. And I feel we'll see a lot of women-led businesses in the near future. And yeah, historically, we have seen that women, there was a gender, persistent gender gap when it came to women taking charge, but not anymore. And that seems to just continue over the coming years.
So Prerna, is it easier now?
So I would say that why that's a question. Like if you look at the panelists, right, like 40%, more than 40% are women now, right? So why that a question still, right? Because what I feel, like personally what I feel, it's us, right, who doubt in first place, right? It's not the world. Like if you stop doubting yourself, right, the world is for you, right? That is where the difference has to happen. Not the infrastructure has to change, not the VC mindset has to change, not your customers, your stakeholders. Nothing has to change. You have to change. Like you have to have that gut, have that confidence in yourself, right? That this is the time.
So Chirag, do you think today it's easier for a startup to begin to grow, to flourish as compared to say maybe, I don't know, 3 years ago?
Definite, yes. As I said, that this is third time for me. I was doing this in 2016. A lot of things have changed, right? I'll tell you, not only funding aspect, I think that's quite prevalent and known. I'll tell you which is a difficult aspect, 2016, if you go and pitch to someone, why don't you join me? It was very difficult. To today, I see a lot of people approaching us that, our industry is getting disrupted, or they know that something exciting is happening here. It's become quite plausible. That belief itself in the ecosystem has changed massively, massively. Led by many factors. And as I said earlier, that, I think the underlying thing is that the market depth is increasing. I keep hearing that, what you saw in China in 2012, wherein, wherever you drill, you would find oil. Similar thing has started to happen in India. We might just again miss it, but at least the early shoots, green shoots are visible, which, at least I very strongly believe that this is a decade of startups. And of course, relating to the earlier topic of women, which is very, very core to me, that why I do entrepreneurship.
So Anubhav, what do you think has made it easier now?
I think the ecosystem has evolved. People who found it difficult in the initial days have themselves come back and given to the ecosystem. So you see founders becoming investors, right? A lot of those founders who've seen it was so tough to raise capital have actually come into the ecosystem. They have created their own wealth with so much hard work over a period of 10, 15 years. But now they are coming back and saying, we will support 100 founders, we will support X number of people to start their own companies. I think so the ecosystem, and we've seen these ecosystems evolve in different parts of the world as well. It's always, you have to bring together capital, you have to bring together resources, you have to bring together players in the industry, like for example, in financial services. I think India is a great example of incumbents working together with fintechs rather than competing with fintechs. Yeah. I haven't personally seen banks fearing fintechs because they understand that they are decades behind in terms of what is going on right now. So there are only two options available to them: either work with us or work with fast-paced, agile fintechs and startups, or be left behind. Yeah. There's no way you can expect them to compete, and it's understandable because they have legacy systems, they have compliances, they have processes, they have large setups which are difficult to change. Yeah. Right? The whole purpose of having a startup is because it's agile. Yeah. You have the flexibility. You can do things the way you want. Tomorrow, I can change how the company moves for the next 3 months without anybody asking me questions. Right? Of course, I'm answerable to the board, I'm answerable to investors, but again, these are people who themselves either have been operators or they understand where we are coming from. So the ecosystem development has happened, and it can only happen if everybody goes back and gives back. It's like what you expect large corporations to have CSR initiatives. That's their way of giving back. I think in the startup world, the only CSR is you yourself go back and start from zero again, right? And that's the only way I think India is moving ahead.
Well, very good points there. So, Preet, do you think there are any challenges? What are the challenges right now that need addressing so that, there can be more support given, like everybody's spoken about that. So let's hear from you on that.
Right. So just adding on to the point that Anubhav made, I think nothing succeeds like success. So in last 3, 4, 5 years, we've seen a lot of wealth created, right? One sort of a important point which the ecosystem is currently offering is that it's an open race, right? So we've seen a 19-year-old sort of bunch of guys, Stanford dropouts, right, running quick commerce, right, giving a run for the money to the incumbents who were there for, let's say, 3, 4, 5 years, the largest food delivery companies in the country, right? Now these guys, so the fearless attitude, because of the success that people have seen, is creating a level playing field, right? It doesn't matter anymore if you're 20 years old, right? You don't have money, right? If you have an idea, investors will back you, right? There is enough money, right? I think that belief was not there at least 3 years, even 3 years ago, right? Now, coming to the second part of the question that you asked, essentially saying that what can go wrong, right? Unfortunately, I mean, I can give you a very straight-jacketed answer, but the reality of the situation is that I don't have an answer what can go wrong. I think some mistakes have been made in the Bay Area when people were blitzscaling, right? There are examples, right? Obviously, we can learn from them, right? We will make our own set of mistakes. We'll learn them, right? I think it is going to be an iterative process. For me to give you an answer that this should not be done, that should not be done. I mean, obviously I can give, but my own sense is that right now, I mean, and taking cue from my fellow panelists, this is the decade for trying, right? This is the decade for swinging for the fences, right? Not being sort of cagey in our approach.
So why don't you add to it? Would you like to add something?
Yeah. So on your question, right, that what may go wrong, right? Like the ecosystem is improving. We are seeing infrastructure, 54 billion investment happened in India from April to November, right? And there are key sectors which have got like fairly large. The government is going to go about manufacturing, etc., right? What can go wrong? So I guess strong fundamentals, if they are not there in a industry or in a company, right? Those are the things which will probably make or break for anybody. But overall in the ecosystem, the government, the infrastructure, the investors, the investment flows, etc., they are all there. They are all supporting what is getting built in India. And India is a very different country. Like it's democratic, right? Unlike China, where it is not, right? While population wise, you might say that it is comparable, but then it creates a favorable environment on that side. So having said that, right, this is the time, right, for startups, whether it is women entrepreneurs or whether it is run by any right male entrepreneurs. So it is the time for everybody to start.
So Alok, mentorship के बारे में आप क्या कहना चाहेंगे? How important is mentorship when you're building a startup, when you're running your business?
So basically, इससे पहले अगर हम बात करें कि आज एंड 3 साल पहले जब हम स्टार्टअप इकोसिस्टम को देखते थे तो कितना टफ था, बट अभी अगर हम बात करें तो थोड़ा सा आसान भी है, बिकॉज पहले इतने CRMs नहीं थे एंड सॉफ्टवेयर नहीं थे, टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं था फॉर कस्टमर एक्विजिशन एंड मार्केटिंग चैनल्स, बट द सेम टाइम टैलेंट एक्विजिशन थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा अभी टफ भी है हमारे लिए. एंड मैंने बहुत सारे और भी स्टार्टअप्स को भी देखा है कि टैलेंट एक्विजिशन के लिए लाइक बहुत ज़्यादा हमें स्ट्रगल करना पड़ता है. बट अगर हम मेंटरशिप की बात करें, सो जब भी हम अपने इन्वेस्टर को ऑनबोर्ड करते हैं अपनी बोर्ड में, लाइक ड्यूरिंग दी फंड रेज, तो हम ये देखते हैं कि पहले हमारे सेम बिजनेस फील्ड से होने चाहिए, राइट? एंड सो डेट कि उनका जो कंप्लीट नॉलेज है, एक्सपीरियंस है, वो हमारे बिजनेस को कैसे एक्सपेंड करने में हेल्प करे. एंड स्टार्टअप में मेंटरशिप एक्चुअली बहुत ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है, बिकॉज एज अ फाउंडर मैंने भी पहले बीटेक कंप्लीट किया फ्रॉम एसआरएम चेन्नई, एंड मैं बीटेक मैकेनिकल के लिए चेन्नई गया था. मैंने कोई मैनेजमेंट प्रोग्राम कोई अटेंड नहीं किया, बट फिर भी जब हमने प्रॉब्लम को देखा तो हमने सोचा कि अब कंपनी स्टार्ट करके ये लोगों की प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करते हैं. बट वहाँ पे हमें ये आइडिया नहीं होता कि लाइक हाउ टू बिल्ड अ कंपनी एंड लोगों को हम कैसे लाइक टैलेंट को हम कैसे एक्वायर करें एंड टीम बिल्डिंग कैसे होती है. सो धीरे धीरे प्रोसेस स्टार्ट होता है. बट इसमें मेंटरशिप जो हमारे इन्वेस्टर्स का होता है, जो हमारे लाइक इनिशियल लाइक कुछ और भी कोर टीम मेंबर्स होते हैं, उनकी मेंटरशिप बहुत ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट होती है हमारी, बिकॉज एज ए फाउंडर वी आर कमिटेड फॉर आवर प्रोडक्ट, नॉट फॉर लाइक कंप्लीटली टीम बिल्डिंग. वो हमारे बाकी टीम कोर टीम की भी एक मेन पॉइंट होता है कि लाइक चलो अच्छा टीम बनाते हैं. So mentorship is very important in a startup, right?
Naina, would you like to add something to that?
Yes, very rightly said. I think having the right mentor is the essence of any startup. You need somebody to guide you, to provide you a direction, a perspective, to make better informed decisions. So I feel if you have an investor who can be your mentor as well, I think there's nothing better than that, because he can help you build a strong team. He can guide you, with navigate, help you navigate through challenges. So I think yes. Having a mentor is important, and you should definitely have one whenever you're starting out with a business.
I'd like to add an anecdotal sort of a thing here, right? So I started my career in Bombay working for one of the large bulge bracket sort of eye banks, right? But as you would know कि Bombay में अगर आप मतलब South Bombay में तो रह नहीं सकते हो, आप North Bombay में ही रहते हो, right? And you travel by train, right? So and you start forming groups जिनके साथ आप daily travel करते हो, right? So we had groups जिसमें few of Gujarati friends were there, right? And as you know, they are very sort of good at stock market, right? So there was this one sort of anecdote which would come almost daily, which is bhav bhagwan che, right? Price is God, right? For share market, right? Now, I think the analogy of that in our startup world is also, that mentorship, I'm sure, helps you to sort of understand and cut the learning curve, right? But ultimately, the ultimate mentor that anyone has is the proof of the pudding is in the eating, right? The customer will give you enough sort of learnings, right? आप उनको अगर ठीक करते चलोगे, I think, that becomes your biggest mentor is what we've learned in last 18 months.
Just to add, I think in my view, in our country, mentorship is the most under-leveraged asset which you can have in
Yes,
in
I
a startup
agree.
ecosystem.
Yeah.
Right. Right from the kind of angels you can get. And I have personally met a lot of startups, which would say, why do I need angels? Do you actually think they'll be helpful? I can tell you by my experience, I have had a very thoughtful angel group, and I can tell everyone has helped me. Yeah, I keep telling this that, you need to, as founders, we need to ask the right question to the right people. I have never seen anyone say, I won't help. Even if they've invested, not invested. I have reached out to random folks across the globe, senior VPs in the country, in large MNCs. Everyone has helped. So I think, maybe, we need to come out of that mentality कि मुझे सब आता है, or I'll figure out my way. End of the day, startup is a multivariate problem, right? You can die at multiple places. At least let's not die at what people have already figured out. Let's do newer mistakes, right? And which people are very, very willing to help. If you ask very pinpointed questions, they'll give you very pinpointed answers. If you ask a very preachy question, they'll give you a preachy answer. So the ball rests with us that what kind of questions are we asking? And these groups are also at various different levels. Not only, investors have an advisory council, have a very close group of co-founders, right? Who can be real mentors. Even, at GoQuick, we have juniors also, at least I would say juniors give us sometimes very good feedback, which seniors are not able to.
Yeah, reverse mentoring. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would add here, right, that as founders, you go through a lot of stress. You go through a lot of so mentorship, or maybe having a group of people who can relate to your problems, right? Who may not give you the best of answers, right? Because your best of answers actually lies in your own thoughts only. But a mirror, right, where you can just let it out and then maybe get a answer if it's possible, but at least have that let out is very important. And especially in today's time, we have seen a lot of mental health issues, etc., going on, right? Having all of those things around, the kind of stress being developed, etc., right? So hence mentorship plays its way, right? Whether it is through a guy or somebody who has already been into entrepreneurship, or maybe just some friends, right, where you just let it out.
I would like to add one more point. Basically, mentorship customer से भी मिल सकता है, right? जब हम प्रोडक्ट बिल्ड करते हैं सो इन द फॉर्म फीडबैक्स, वहाँ से स्ट्रॉन्ग प्रोडक्ट बनाने के लिए भी बहुत ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है कि कुछ चीज़ों को हम देखें, लाइक कुछ क्लोज कस्टमर्स भी होते हैं इनिशियली जब हम किसी भी कंपनी को बिल्ड करते हैं, सो कुछ 5 से 10 कस्टमर होते हैं, लाइक वहाँ से भी हम आराम से सीख सकते हैं कि लाइक हाउ वी कैन बिल्ड अ स्ट्रॉन्ग प्रोडक्ट, राइट? क्योंकि आइडिया हमारा होता है तो एक एक प्रोडक्ट हमें बहुत अच्छा लगता है इनिशियली, बट कस्टमर बताता है कि लाइक नो सर दिस इज नॉट राइट, यहाँ पे मैं प्रॉब्लम फेस कर रहा, इसकी ये सोल्यूशन होनी चाहिए। सो बेस्ट मेंटर प्रोडक्ट बिल्डिंग के लिए आई से कि कस्टमर इज द गुड सोर्स।
Yeah, so feedback is very important. So Anubhav, let's talk a little bit about, strategic investment flow. And when you're doing the planning, what is it? Let's talk about long-term versus short-term. And what is the best way? What is the most important aspect of it?
Sure. So I think I can talk about from personal experience here because I think it's a very vast field in terms of how you approach for investment and how do you plan for it. Uh, Investment is an outcome to a goal that you have arrived at. I think we all have seen a lot of capital flowing in the last few years, and it sometimes gets stressful because when you see other people raising a lot of capital, you try to optimize for something which is not your North Star. So for us, I think when we look at investment flows for the company, uh, and investment for us could be both. It could be equity or debt. I think a lot of people undermine debt. I have always been quite vocal about that. As a company, right? You should consider your equity to be the most precious thing and not give it out so easily, right? Can you get leverage from the market? Why can't you? In fact, it shows how much confidence you have on yourself if you can take debt from the market and because you trust yourself to pay it back. So when you do planning for both equity and debt, I think one thing that as founders we keep in mind is what is the goal that we are aiming towards, and is this the right goal which would make somebody invest in you? Have you created enough value so that that other person finds that value to be significant enough to give you their money, to give you their time? I think we spoke about mentorship. I think from various aspects, investment is not just money. It's much more as well. We found that there are certain investors who have brought little money but much more value to us over a period of time. We've had 4 institutional investors in the last 1 year, and one of them who's not put in the largest amount of capital has actually helped us the most. In fact, there was a time when we had to choose. We had multiple interests from investors, and we had to choose. So we thought, what should we go after? Should we go after the investor which has the largest fund, so they can continue supporting us with capital, or should we go after an investor which is more India focused, very well networked in the community, can actually open a lot of doors for us? So when we were planning for that investment, I think we also kept in mind that these are the goals. And as you approach somebody for an investment, you also have to think about not just money, but are there other things that they can help? In fact, a lot of times these days, founders do ask investors that, how could you help us other than money? Right? Is there a large portfolio base of your companies that you have invested in who could be partners for us? Are there other strategic initiatives where you could help us? Are there new markets where you can take us? And things like those. So I think we look at a combination of all of that.
So Chirag, how does one balance that out, like taking on from what he's just said?
So let me break the long-term vision and short-term vision. At least in my view, there is no short-term vision in a startup. It's a decade-long journey. You can, of course, have yearly goals to it, but at least, you aim for building out a company which is going to be built out in 10 years, and it'll have its ups and downs. We might have started it in 2021, hence, the macro trend was up. So everything looks good today, right? But we will have our share of, downs as well. And at least, what he said, to add to Anubhav, I think one important thing which at least we look up to from an investor point of view is that how have they behaved with a company, when the chips were down or when it was not actually working, right? And it's not, I'm not looking, we don't look at it an answer that did you support with additional capital. We do realize that you are also an investor, you are fiduciary responsible. But, what was the general behavior of, how did you go about dealing with it? I think that's an important thing for, us to consider. And especially in a world where capital, at least, till day before yesterday was abundant. Today, I don't know with the Russia attack, what's going to happen. But I think the overall, at least the message which has worked for me is that I would say that, our time as founders or the opportunity in front of us has to be very, very important because we are going to spend our 10 years, right? An investor is going to put input, that's an input, required input to build out the company. But the problem, the vision statement should be very, very meaningful, should resonate with us so that we can devote, our next 10 years to this. So I would encourage, others to think around that.
Yeah. So I think I would like to add one another dimension as a founder. So we started in COVID bang at the sort of a start of the COVID, right? I mean, so which meant, even though the lot of capital was available, but still there was uncertainty as to how COVID would pan out, right? Now, that is not necessarily a bad thing, right? So that helped us to innovate, right? So what I've seen in my previous sort of an avatar as an investor was when too much capital is available, right? So you start throwing money at problems rather than solving them, right? I mean, so आपको लगता है कि ये चीज करनी है, 4 लोग hire कर लेते हैं, right? And it's not 4 different people that you're hiring, it's 4 different personalities who interact with each other, right? And then they cause chaos, right? In more times often than not, right? So what COVID actually came as a blessing in disguise for us was that we, because of the uncertainty that COVID brought in, right, we innovated. And now that we have ample capital available at Glamio Health, now we can leverage the innovations that we've sort of done. And that has helped us scale much more efficiently than what some of our peers have been able to do.
Yeah, so I would say that a lot of it also depends on at what stage the startup is, right? If you are in an early stage, you are in a growth stage, right? Or you're in a late stage startup, right? And it also depends on like, what are you raising for, right? You are raising because you are building, are you raising for your working capital requirement, or you like for your asset requirements, or you are actually building a core team, the core product, right? So I would say that all of these investment decisions, right, has to be prioritized based on what exactly your startup is at, right? The stage and the requirement that it has, right? And adding on to your point, debt is obviously not a bad, based on if you're raising for working, definitely for a working capital, maybe a debt is a better product, right? But if you're building a core product, right, or you are at a seed stage where a lot of things can go downside also and can go north side also, right? So at that point in time, you probably need to get a strong investor on board who can give you, or who can at least walk that mile along with you when you're taking those tough decisions, right? So yeah, all of those things matter, and there is no right answer, because it depends from industry to industry and startup to startup and their stage, right, of their own business, right? The revenue that they are making, is there an MVP ready or not ready, right? A lot of these things, yeah.
So Alok, इसमें क्या should we keep in mind? क्या risk factors हो सकते हैं? क्या हमको अपने mind में रखना चाहिए? Important चीज.
Risk factor, investor point of view से, or maybe as a company, like which one?
From the investor.
So अगर मैं भी किसी कंपनी में इन्वेस्ट कर रहा हूँ, तो सबसे पहले इंपॉर्टेंट है कि जिस टीम के ऊपर हम पैसे इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, वो टीम कंप्लीटली कमिटेड है कि नहीं. पहला पॉइंट ये है, बिकॉज एज ए पार्ट टाइम वी कैन नॉट क्रिएट दैट स्ट्रॉन्ग प्रोडक्ट जो रिक्वायरमेंट है मार्केट की. एंड सबसे बड़ी जो रिस्क होती है स्टार्टअप में एज ए इन्वेस्टर, बिकॉज मैंने बहुत बार सुना है कि 10 में से 9 स्टार्टअप फेल होते हैं, एक ही स्टार्टअप चलता है एंड देन वहां से उनका आरओआई जनरेट होता है, एंजल इन्वेस्टर और मे बी वीसी के भी। बट सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट है जब हम रिस्क को देखें, what the complete core team and या आइडिया। बिकॉज एक मीटिंग में मैंने किसी से सीखा था, एक बहुत ही रिस्पेक्टेड पर्सन है लाइक दिल्ली एनसीआर में, उन्होंने बताया कि लाइक आलोक, इंडिया में जो बिजनेसेस हैं, जो ट्रेड हैं, वो करंट सिचुएशन के हिसाब से बिजनेस यहाँ पे बनाए जाते हैं। बट इन फॉरेन मार्केट अगर हम देखें, वहाँ पे ह्यूमन जो बिहेवियर है आने वाले 10 साल के बाद, 20 साल के बाद, उसको एनालाइज करते हुए हम प्रोडक्ट को बिल्ड करते हैं। तो इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि जिस भी कंपनी में हम इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं वो फ्यूचरिस्टिक है कि नहीं। एंड मे बी कोई आपके सामने एक आइडिया आ सकता है कि जिसकी रिक्वायरमेंट अभी नहीं है मार्केट में, बट मे बी आफ्टर 2 years और मे बी आफ्टर 5 years इसकी रिक्वायरमेंट बहुत ज्यादा होगी। जैसे कि हमने हमेशा सुना कि लाइक इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल्स, राइट? कभी लाइक जब मैं 2010 में अपने स्कूल टाइम में था, मुझे भी नहीं लगता था कि इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल इतना ज्यादा बूम हो सकता है 2022 में। बट अभी देखें तो इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल की जो अभी रिक्वायरमेंट है वो बहुत ज़्यादा हाई है। तो कहने कि ये एक विजन होना चाहिए लॉन्ग टर्म। सो इन्वेस्टमेंट करते हैं इसमें, सो मिशन एंड विजन बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, फाउंडर्स का भी एंड कमिटमेंट।
So Naina, I'll get your views on this as well.
Yeah, so as Alok rightly said, of course, the founding team needs to be very strong, and the company needs to be very strong that you're investing in. Otherwise, if the company only fails, you are losing your investment there. But apart from that, I feel the market risk is also to be taken into account. For example, nobody believed, if I talk about my case, nobody thought that D2C would be so big in 2021, 2022. Whereas while before the pandemic, it was only in fintech that people were investing. So now, thanks to the market changing, there is always a risk. There is always a risk change in demand and supply. For example, a company like Book My Show, that was doing so well because of the pandemic. Now it is suffering, right? So the market risk is a very important risk factor that needs to be thought about, right?
So now, all of you are doing so well. And what I want is, tell me your learnings from, say, your journey, each of you, that we can sort of, the viewers can take away. So let's start with you.
Sure. So I think, and some of this may not apply to everybody, but one thing we've learned is you have to move with the pace of the time. Right now, things are moving very fast. We've seen the last few months, especially the last couple of years, even though there was pandemic, but because of inflow of capital, a lot of startups raised a lot of money and then moved very fast, right? So what we've learned is speed actually outweighs some of the mistakes that you make, right? So your speed of execution has to be absolutely rock solid. You can run experiments, you can make mistakes, but if you take a lot of time in solving a particular problem or approaching a certain goal, then there are a lot of other people who are also moving in that direction and you'll be left behind. So I think for us, it's about planning and then rock solid fast execution. So speed for us has really worked. So I think that's the number one thing that we have learned. The second thing that we've learned is that even though speed of execution is important, but at the same time, you can't lose sight of fundamentals. I think we've constantly debated how growth is very important. Unit economics comes later, but you can't lose sight of how you'll bring positive unit economics into the business, right? That's how you create wealth, like you pointed out. That value creation can happen, but without economics, ultimate wealth creation cannot happen. So I think we've constantly focused on economics of the business in terms of how we make money, how do we not lose investor capital into areas which can be optimized better. So those are two things that have really helped us, especially in pandemic, because you never know when the bad times will come, right? Right now there is capital, tomorrow there'll not be. So you have to keep that plan B ready. In fact, for us, it's fortunate or unfortunate, both the times when we were raising money, by the time the next round money came in, we hardly had 15 days of cash left in our bank account, right? But I think we had enough support from our investors, from our debt partners to help us sustain. I think from that perspective, it's very important to plan for that rainy day, which right now looks like the world is experiencing on a very regular basis.
So personally, I would say that, if anyone wants to or aspires to become an entrepreneur, I think has to be an eternal optimist. You will see things change very, very rapidly. It can be, and we live in a world where offers are reneged. People don't join, etc., etc. To very, very large things, right? So if you're not an eternal optimist, I think it becomes very hard. And I have seen people struggle, right? So that's on the personal front. I think what I have learned that, always believe that something good is about to happen. Whenever you go for a sleep, that should be the last thought. From a company perspective, I think a few learnings, start with, an hypothesis. Everyone now knows the word MVP, but I like to describe it as, it's a customer promise which needs to be filled. Customer doesn't need the product day one, right? So can you fulfill the promise, in any way, in the most cheap way, right? And then figure out that, what else is needed, and then move to a early stage PMF. And that's how you scale, right? So don't scale prematurely also, but don't delay also. So that's on the product side. On the people side, I think because, we have built the company, we become 100 people strong company in a matter of a year, all remotely. It's been quite challenging and full of learnings for us. When you start a company, you want a lot of generalists, who can wear 10 hats and do various different responsibilities. You don't have finance, you don't have HR. So somebody's doing X, Y, Z. And then as company scales up, you get specialists, right? So how do you, do that? I think I found this very interesting framework wherein, there is, which is known as pioneers, settlers, and town planners, right? All three orgs are very different. Pioneers are someone who's willing to fail, probably will be successful 2 out of 10. But if you put a settler into a pioneer, you are setting yourself for a failure. Settler is someone who's already seen a product work, and now we'll take it to the next level. So it's like somebody's doing 1 to 10, and somebody's doing 0 to 1. And then we've still not reached the town planner phase, but that's someone, who's supposed to run a factory. So at least traveling that journey itself has been very, very challenging, full of learnings. What kind of people do you get in, at what stage? And as founders, it becomes important that when you get someone senior, how do you trust them with something and just make way for them, right? It comes hard. It's not easy that you're used to, as an operator, you are used to being very hands-on. How do you do that? How do you, make way for someone who you have hired and they have taken the plunge to come in? Give them enough freedom to, execute. It is tough, but I think we're trying to maneuver, and there are a lot of learnings.
Yeah. So for me, I think the key learning is that identify a real problem that you're solving for, right? That is very, very important, right? So most of us sort of get drawn into sort of a Me Too kind of an offering, right? So identify a real problem that you're trying to solve, right? Then this narrative, at least in the founder's mind, it cannot be incremental, right? You have to swing for the fences, right? You will fail 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, but the risk of having an incremental narrative, it's not your own time, right? You are actually sort of responsible for, let's say in our case, 180 people, right, who are now sort of dependent on what their founders by and large till now are sort of driving the company towards, right? So you have a huge, it's not your own 3 years that you're wasting, right? So the narrative has to be swing for the fences, right? And one framework that I've found particularly useful is one which was discussed in the earlier group also, is the OKR sort of a framework, right? In that OKR framework, John Doerr, the partner at Kleiner Perkins, right, says take stretched OKRs, right? So you have to sort of aim for Mars, and then you will ultimately land at Moon, right? Which will be an achievement.
Okay, I'll keep it short. I would say that for me, it is that you have to be aspirational from outside and resilient from inside. As a company, as a team, right? Whosoever is your outside stakeholders, right? Your consumers, your clients, etc. For them, when they're seeing you, like your product, yourself, you should be like a very aspirational company, a very aspirational product. But inside, right? If you build that culture of being resilient, right? No matter what time turns into or a rainy day comes in, right? You're gonna sail through.
Okay, so my learning is किसी भी कंपनी को बनाने के लिए सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट है द राइट टीम, राइट टीम बिल्डिंग। बिकॉज जब भी किसी स्टार्टअप को फंड मिलता है, सो जब हम हायरिंग स्टार्ट करते हैं तो सबसे पहले जो चीज़ होती है कि प्रोडक्ट जल्दी बिल्ड करना है हमें, सो हायरिंग जल्दी कंप्लीट करो, जल्दी कंप्लीट करो। सो इसमें होता है कि लाइक राइट टीम हमें कंप्लीटली मिलता नहीं है कभी भी। बट सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट ये है कि किसी भी कंपनी को बनाने के लिए हमें एम्प्लॉयज की जरूरत नहीं होती, वी नीड अ टीम, कंप्लीट टीम। जैसे कि अगर आप हमारे हेडक्वार्टर स्टॉक डैडी में देखो, जो गुड़गांव में ही है, हमारे पास अभी टोटल 115 लोग हैं, एंड कंप्लीटली विल सी देयर कंप्लीट वहाँ पे जो 115 लोग हैं वो आलोक कुमार है, वहाँ पे 115, दे आर नॉट एम्प्लॉइज। एंड सब कोई अपने टाइम से आते हैं, बट कोई भी ऐसा नहीं जाता कि सर 6 बजे तो मैं जाऊँ क्या, नो, एक्चुअली दे आर कंप्लीटिंग देयर टारगेट्स जो डिवाइडेड हमने डिसाइड किया था। तो पहला लर्निंग ये है कि लाइक जब भी हम कंपनी को बनाए तो टीम बिल्डिंग, right team building, and then as a founder I'll say open mindset, because जो आइडिया फर्स्ट टाइम हमें क्लिक करते हैं ना, लाइक ये मार्केट को बहुत अच्छा लगेगा, ऐसा नहीं होता। एंड हमारे साथ भी हुआ बेसिकली। रंजीत कुमार मेरा को फाउंडर भी यहाँ पे साथ में है अभी। सो एक्चुअली हमने सोचा था कि स्टॉक डैडी का जो वर्जन 1 होगा विद इन 7 days विल कंप्लीट दैट, उसको हम बना के एंड देन मार्केट में उसको रोल आउट करेंगे, एंड देन विल एक्वायर दैट कस्टमर्स, राइट। एंड पहला हमारा जो आइडिया था कि हम वेबसाइट से कोर्सेज सेल करेंगे एंड देन डन, लाइक बिकॉज विल क्योंकि हम उस टाइम पे प्रॉफिट्स बना रहे थे। बट फाइनली जब हमने ऐप बनाना स्टार्ट किया, देन वी फाउंड लाइक नो, जो स्टॉक डैडी है इस पे कंप्लीटली हमें सिर्फ वो कोर्सेज प्रोवाइड नहीं करना, हमें इंडियन सोसाइटी के लाइफ में ये जो वैल्यू ऐड करना है ना, इसके लिए हमें कुछ करना चाहिए, राइट। एंड आई नो, एंड एज अ कॉर्पोरेट वी नो कि कंप्लीटली हम अपने इंडियन सोसाइटी से चार्ज भी नहीं कर सकते, बिकॉज सी बहुत सारे नई चीजें भी मार्केट में आती हैं, राइट। सो हमने अपने ऐप पे रखा लाइक मोर देन 60% जो फीचर्स है अभी भी लाइक फ्री हैं, ताकि लोग आके ट्राई कर सकें, समझ सके लाइक व्हाट इज स्टॉक मार्केट बेसिकली। बिकॉज हमें पता है कि हम जिस मार्केट में डील कर रहे हैं वहाँ पे पहले निगेटिव माइंडसेट है, देन उसको न्यूट्रल करना है, एंड देन वी हैव टू प्रोवाइडेड सप्लाई जो भी सर्विसेज हैं, जो यूनिक फीचर्स है, राइट। तो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट है टीम बिल्डिंग एंड फीडबैक्स। जो हमारे मेंटरशिप की अगर हम जो लास्ट डिस्कशन में हम बात करते हैं मेंटरशिप, सो वहाँ से जो फीडबैक्स आते हैं बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट होते हैं नेक्स्ट लेवल पे जाने के लिए कंपनी को। क्या
Thank you. Naina?
Right. So for me, if personally, I would say you should learn from your failures. You should learn to embrace them. They are your biggest learnings. And secondly, from a company perspective, I think you should focus on your customers, build a strong community of customers who you're very honest and transparent with about your product, and accept your mistakes when needed to. And if your customer is happy with you, I think that's your half job done. You have achieved what you wanted to. They will stick to you, they will be loyal to you, and I think that has been my biggest learning in the last 3 years.
So I can see that we've run out of time. This has been great. I have learned a lot, and I'm certain that people who are watching this have learned a lot, and we must continue this discussion because I did have like a bunch of more questions for you all. So I think we should get together again and, continue this. But thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you.